What's up, folks? This is Dan from Discern, and these are my thoughts on the new album from Lawren, Pieces. Lawren is a rapper from Miami, Florida. It's pronounced Lawren, even though it's spelled Lawren. He was part of the 2015 class of Rapzilla Freshmen, featuring the year's Best Newcomers in Christian Hip Hop. He released his debut EP, Have Nots, spelled without the vowels, HVNTS, in March of 2015, and he's on the up and up, I think. He's still a young artist, but a determined and passionate artist. He's part of the crew of young artists in Christian hip-hop who are in the same place in their careers as he is. Just last month, actually, he had a feature on Oscar Urbina's album on the track Up and Comer, which is a great example of this current snapshot of his career. Throughout this year, actually, he's been releasing a few singles here and there, which are featured on this 10-track album. This album, which originally started as an EP named Dose, I believe, is basically 8 tracks with 2 bonus tracks. And those 2 bonus tracks are the single 95 featuring Wonder Why and Phantom featuring Wonder Why and No Big Deal. This album, which was released on Lawren's birthday, August 12th, tells the story of his life, or more specifically, in his words, it's about the pieces of my life and how they fit together, also how they're broken and how Jesus puts them together. You can see the theme of time and his storyline even in the titles of the songs. I mean, this album kicks off with the track First Day and ends before the bonus tracks with Last Day. And in the middle, there's One Day, Another Day, One Day Part 2. It's a progression. It's a timeline. It's the days of his life and his story going by. The production on this album is a mix of boom-bap and trap beats. There are a handful of producers on this album. He's got a few tracks that start off with these R&B, soul, gospel samples, usually with some vocal pitching involved. But the songs then transition into these pretty heavy trap grooves. It's a unique style to blend those two sounds, and it's kind of a style that carried over from his debut project. Some of that, due to his working with producer Gordon Beats again, who he heavily worked with on that first EP. But you also get that same style and direction on the track Another Day, and that was produced by Stimp C. When it comes to flow and vocal articulation, Lawren is pretty forceful and punctuated, kind of aggressive. The way he raps on this album, and maybe more, how his vocal performance was recorded and produced in the studio, it's often pretty sharp and almost piercing. He's by far the loudest feature in the mix, especially when he's punching the words out with force. When he's rapping at a lower volume, when he's more chilled, more even keel, the mix sounds great, it's balanced nicely. But when he lets out his inner beast and just starts punching the words out with force, that's when he starts topping the meter. I mean, that's when the vocals seem to jump out and on top of the mix too much. It's his P's and S's and his C's and his T's. Any sharp or abrasive phoneme, which there's a word for you, try using that in conversation tomorrow. Any crispy sound that comes out is like little paper cuts. It's too abrasive. It's too punctuated. It's not like it ruins the tracks or anything, but I certainly found myself turning it down a little, trying to give my ears some protection from these powerful cuts and jabs that were flying at me. But I think the way he raps and what he raps about actually goes hand in hand. He seems upset. He seems, the struggle is real. He's under stress and pressure. A lot of the lyrics, are about struggles against sin, against the world, against himself. It has a sparring sort of feel, me against them, us against them, this against that. And really, seeing some context here, taking a step back, that's really the look that braggadocio in Christian hip-hop has had for years. It's an attitude of toughness and strength instead of an attitude of being beaten down. It's the feel of testosterone-powered battles with the struggles of life. And that's pretty much the vibe I got on a good portion of this album. It vocally reminds me of the style of Eminem, when he's not being silly, or NF. I mean, there's a grit to his speech, a fighter mentality that permeates these tracks. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. There's still acknowledgments that God is the true victor, that God is the one winning these battles, but the mood, the feel sort of says otherwise. The mood, as is very typical in hip-hop in general, feels like a look at me swagger. And trap music as a subgenre of rap is even further down that road. It's tough, it's confident, it's got a strut to it. All this to say, this is the vibe I get from most of this record. It's the bragging, but not bragging Christian hip-hop sound that I think most of us are familiar with. But unfortunately, without more tricks up his sleeve, without more variations on that sound, much of the vocal flow on this album sounds flat and uninspired. I mean, the tempos change, but the rhythms and the dynamics really aren't as varied. Now, with some of those general thoughts out of the way, let's get into some trap track specifics here. It is trap music. On the track One Day, which was a single released back in February, man, I am still loving Belief's feature on here. It's great, and I love that "give that boy a buoy" line. If you're not familiar, it's about 40 seconds into it. It's so clever, the way he pronounces those words, sounding so similar. It's like he says the same word twice, and then ends it with that, "ooh." It's hilarious. It's hilarious. I love that. The track One Day Part 2 has a hefty selection of features on it. We got Jav Mendez, No Big Deal, B. Cooper, and Dre Murray. I think this is a really good array of styles on this track. Each rapper has such a unique flow and style. Each verse sounds significantly different from the others, like from a vocal perspective. Dre Murray is very regimented in his rhythm. B. Cooper, with a lower voice, slows the pace down a bit. The production gets boomier, features some more samples. No Big Deal, with an even lower voice, features some classic vocal doubling, some accents. And then Jav Mendez has a young and more timid flow. And then Lawren, of course, closes it out with his typical forceful approach, really shoving his words down the mic's throat. All that variability, in the features really made the track more interesting, I think. It gave more character and definition to each rapper featured. The track Pieces opens up with a crushing feature from ABIV. He really knocks it out of the park on this one. Delivers a softly sung hook that reaches high and low, like really low as he ends the hook. It's got this deep warmth, beautifully done with some great harmonies too. I just think he starts that song off right, starts it on the right foot. The track Another Day, another pretty good one, energy-wise and lyrically, especially coming off the heels of I'm On It, which has a pretty mild and cloudy trap beat. This song opens with a sample saying, "Here comes another day," and "you see a whole lot of love," and it ends with, "let me talk about it." The track then kicks off, the vocals tightly grooving with the beat, synced up really well. The production is pretty full. There's a kind of a mess of rhythms going on, a good mess. I think this is one of the better tracks on the album, but the lyrics don't show you a whole lot of love, like the sample at the beginning implies. The lyrics basically lay out the cold, bloody facts about the crime and violence in Lawren's backyard, Miami. It's a bold but honest statement to name this track Another Day, to basically say that this is how it's been day after day. It's just another day. It's a moving track. It really is. And there's a great line in here, I think, that ties the pain that this community is feeling to the crucifixion of Christ, saying that Jesus can sympathize with those who are enduring pain in amounts that they've never felt before. He's been through tremendous pain, both physically and emotionally. But the news clip that's thrown in around the middle of the track, the clip about King Carter, a 6-year-old boy from Miami who was shot and killed earlier this year, It's very fitting thematically, but it was artistically handled pretty sloppily, I think. The instrumental just cuts off, the clip is inserted, and then when it's done, the instrumental just comes right back. That's not a bad decision, you know, when your clip is 2 or 3 seconds long, it sort of just cuts out a little snippet and it cuts right back in. But this is almost 15 seconds long. I mean, it's an extended halt to the rhythm of the track, and it sort of derails the train. Now, the clip they play at the end, they handled this one much better. It's from an 11-year-old boy, Aziz Muhammad, who's speaking at a town hall gathering in Miami, speaking about gun violence and how to keep kids safe. And this clip, great choice to use this clip. It's stunning. I mean, from the mouth of babes, basically. It's just like that. He's emotionally torn up. You hear it in his voice. He's on the verge of crying and losing it. But he's delivering some very powerful statements about the need to keep kids safe, the responsibility the elders in the community have. And the instrumental here, I mean, it matches it wonderfully. It doesn't cease. It doesn't completely fall off. It gradually decrescendos as the track closes. It's tasteful. It's well done. I think emotionally it resonates with that clip. Another song on here, the track 95. It's another track where I think Lawren really brings his all to it. His mood and feel as he sort of pushes and elbows his way through a thick jungle of constant hi-hats and syncopated kick drums. It's another full production sound, like on Another Day, except production here is by Juice Bangers. This is the sound where I think Lawren excels the best, you know, when the production competes with his vocal approach, when they're both pretty aggressive and active. It's a win-win. They both sound great. Another thing about this song, there's some Puerto Rican references, some Spanish thrown in, you know, similar cultural references to the track Castro, which, you know, features that are personal to him, as his father, you hear in that song Castro, is a Cuban American, a Cuban exile, as well as his mother and his grandparents. This song, 95, and the song Castro, you know, to use these features gives the songs a unique style. They make the song unique to him as a person. It says something about himself. And I think it really separates himself from the broader culture of rap music. It separates these songs, at least, from those. He also has a great line in there, probably my favorite line. I know I be trippin', I need to be better, but that's not the gospel, I need to be deader. That's a good line. Clever and thoughtful. I mean, the heart of fixing yourself is fixing your heart. And that's not something you do yourself. I mean, dying to yourself, dying to sin, it's a heart change that comes about through the gospel. That's one of my favorite lyrics on this project. My thoughts overall, this is an album that has been growing on me, really. I didn't enjoy it, really, the first time through. I liked a few tracks, but I think overall I thought it was pretty mediocre. But as I've got into it more, as I've dove into the lyrics and learned more about Lawren, he's winning me over, you know. The production and the flow and the lyrics on this album don't really stand out too much on the Christian hip-hop landscape. You know, these tracks aren't really surprising or wildly unique in their sound or in their topic even. But the more you listen, the more you understand about what you're hearing, I really do think the more personality and individual style you start to see from Lawren. I've got links in the description box below to hear this album. It's a free download, actually, from Rapzilla, so check it out, download it if you're interested. I don't mean to make this record sound like it's worthless, but it's definitely worth $0. So it is actually worth more than that, to be honest. But they're giving it away, so go get it. I also put a link down in the description to Lawren's Twitter. Give him a follow. If you like the new music, let him know. And that is all for this video. Thank you for watching this album review. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. New album reviews just like this release every Friday, and new track reviews release every Wednesday. Subscribing is the best way to make sure you don't miss any of these new reviews. If you have a question or a comment for me about this album or not about this album, let me know. You can comment below this video. You could tweet at me at discernreviews, or you can send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. Have you listened to this album from Lawren? Have you been following his career, since last year, since he was a Rapzilla freshman in 2015? Did you think his name was pronounced Lawren like I used to? I admit it. Let me know your thoughts on this album, on my review, on my thoughts, good or bad, whatever you have to say. I hope to hear from some of you. Anyway, hope this helps. See ya.